And then get this, Lieutenant Kraz Hull slapped his upper tentacles together in what passed for laughter among the Voraxians. They claim their primitive ancestors used to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Can you imagine, running after something until it just gives up? The barracks of the ISV Indomitable erupted in a chorus of multi-species amusement. 6 different aliens, representing the Galactic Coalition's most elite strike force, were sprawled across their respective rest stations designed to accommodate their wildly diverse physiologies. What did they call it again? Asked Grell, a massive reptilian whose emerald scales glinted under the ship's ambient lighting. Persistence Hunting, supplied Plex 27, the unit's mechanoid specialist, its vocal emitter producing a perfect imitation of a scholarly tone. According to human historical records, they would pursue animals for many planetary rotations until the prey suffered from hyperthermia and collapsed. Commander Xandaz, a 4-armed Quilaxian, with azure skin adorned with luminescent patterns, snorted derisively through his breathing slits. Next you'll tell me they actually believe they can temporarily shut down half their consciousness while remaining partially aware of threats. What was their term? Sleeping, with one eye open, added Mirok, the unit's avian navigator, preening her crimson feathers, as if their pathetic sensory organs could possibly detect a true predator while in their dormant state. The derision continued as they lounged in the recreation period before their next deployment. The Voraxian Strike Team Delta had earned this respite after 3 successful campaigns against the Hive Collective. Their unit had been recently assigned a human, their first, and the novelty of having such a notoriously soft species among their ranks provided endless entertainment. And the water thing, Kraz Hull continued, warming to his audience, they claim they can survive without hydration for 3 of their planetary rotations. 3. Even my aquatic cousins can't manage that. Their ridiculous mythology probably evolved from some primitive need to feel adequate in a universe that clearly designed them as prey species. Commander Xandaz said, his tactical mind always analyzing. Psychological compensation. Mirok fluffed her feathers in agreement. Did you know they believe they can regulate their internal temperature, like some kind of organic environmental control system? Thermoregulation, Plex 27 corrected. My databases indicate humans consider this an evolutionary advantage. Quite amusing considering the temperature ranges we all naturally tolerate. The barracks door hissed open, causing the conversation to momentarily pause. Into the room stepped the subject of their ridicule, the unit's lone human, Lieutenant Tom Cooper. Average height for his species, unremarkable in almost every physical aspect, Cooper carried himself with the quiet confidence that had initially confused his alien teammates. How could something so fragile, so obviously vulnerable, display such certainty? Speaking of mythological creatures, whispered Grell, just loud enough to be overheard. Cooper nodded politely to his teammates, and proceeded to his locker, apparently oblivious to their conversation. The aliens exchanged looks, some amused, others slightly uncomfortable that their subject of mockery had arrived. Lieutenant Cooper, Commander Xandaz acknowledged, his 4 arms crossing in the Quilaxian gesture of formal greeting. We were just discussing some of your species' unique biological claims. Cooper smiled thinly. Were you now? Anything particularly interesting, or just the usual humans are squishy's highlight reel? The persistence hunting, Kraz Hull said bluntly. Your ancient texts claim humans would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Quite the tall tale. Cooper closed his locker and turned to face the group fully. Not a tale at all, Lieutenant. Perfectly documented historical hunting technique. Quite effective, actually. Come now, Mirok chirped, her head tilting skeptically. Your species can barely maintain pace with a juvenile Centaurian sloth. The energy expenditure would be prohibitive. Believe what you want, Cooper shrugged, settling onto his berth. But there's a reason humans were invited into the coalition despite our apparent limitations. The announcement system interrupted before anyone could respond. Strike Team Delta, report to mission briefing in 10 standard minutes. Repeat, Strike Team Delta to mission briefing. Commander Xandaz rose to his full impressive height. Enough recreational discourse. Mission prep protocols, everyone. As the aliens began their pre-briefing rituals, Cooper sat quietly on his berth, methodically checking his equipment. If he was bothered by his teammates' dismissive attitudes, he showed no sign of it, but there was something in his eyes, a quiet knowledge, perhaps, that might have given a more observant alien pause. Too bad none of them were watching closely enough to notice. Cooper had been with Strike Team Delta for exactly 27 standard cycles, just long enough for the novelty of his presence to wear off. but not quite long enough for his teammates to see him as anything but a peculiar diplomatic inclusion. The Galactic Coalition's integration initiative mandated that elite units incorporate at least one member from each founding species. Humans, as the newest and least impressive members, were typically assigned to support roles or logistics. Cooper, however, had somehow landed a spot on the Coalition's most decorated combat unit. "I still don't understand how you passed the physical qualifications," Grell remarked as the team prepped their gear. The massive reptilian scales flexed as he adjusted his armor plating. "No offense intended, of course." "None taken," Cooper replied, his voice carrying that strange human quality of sounding simultaneously sincere and sarcastic. "I just checked all the right boxes, I guess." Commander Zando's voice cut through their conversation. Lieutenant Cooper received a battlefield commission after the Rigelian incursion. His file indicates distinguished service. The Rigelian incursion. Mirok's crest feathers rose in surprise. But that was a bloodbath. Over 60% casualties. Cooper continued checking his standard-issue pulse rifle, his movements efficient and practiced. 63%, he corrected without looking up. "I was part of the extraction team for the 7th Coalition Fleet." A momentary silence fell over the preparation room. The Rigelian incursion was infamous, an ambush that had devastated Coalition forces 3 cycles ago. Few had survived, and those who did were regarded with a mixture of respect and suspicion. The mission reports remained classified. Krasdal's upper tentacles twisted in the Varaxian expression of disbelief. "You? An extraction specialist? Your species can barely withstand standard G-forces during emergency maneuvers. That's actually another misconception." Plex 27 interjected, its metallic voice carrying an instructional tone. "Human physiological records indicate they can temporarily endure significantly higher G-forces than previously believed, though the biological mechanisms remain poorly understood." "Thank you for the defense, Plex," Cooper said with a slight smile, "though I suspect our teammates remain unconvinced." Commander Zandos stepped toward the preparation chamber's exit, his tactical display glowing against his azure skin. Convinced or not, Cooper is a certified member of this unit. His service record qualified him for this assignment, unusual as that may seem. The commander paused, his 4 eyes focusing on each team member in turn. "And may I remind everyone that Coalition protocol specifically prohibits species-based discrimination or harassment. We are professionals." As they filed out toward the briefing room, Grell fell into step beside Cooper. The reptilian towered over the human by nearly 2 meters, his armored bulk making Cooper look even more fragile by comparison. "No hard feelings about the banter, Cooper," Grell rumbled quietly. "It's just unusual to have your kind in front-line combat." Cooper nodded. "I understand. Humans don't look impressive compared to the rest of you. I'd be skeptical too." "What's your specialization anyway?" Grell asked. "Everyone else has obvious tactical advantages. Krasdal's regenerative abilities, Mirok's aerial reconnaissance, my armor and strength, Plex's computational skills, and the commander's tactical genius." Cooper's face remained neutral. "I'm just a well-rounded soldier. Jack of all trades, master of none, as we humans say." "That idiom translates poorly," commented Plex 27, who had silently moved within earshot. "The language template suggests it's self-deprecating, yet historical context indicates it originally continued with but oftentimes better than master of one." Cooper's eyebrows rose slightly. "I'm impressed, Plex. Not many non-humans catch that nuance. I am programmed to analyze linguistic patterns beyond literal translation," the mechanoid replied with what almost sounded like pride. "Your species' communication is unnecessarily complex, but occasionally elegant in its ambiguity." They reached the briefing room door, where Commander Zandos waited, his posture rigid with pre-mission focus. "Everyone, prepare for mission parameters. This assignment comes directly from Coalition Central Command." As they entered, Admiral Vex's core turned from the holographic display dominating the center of the room. The Admiral, a veteran Qualaxian with battle scars, distorting the luminescent patterns on his face, nodded curtly to the team. "Strike Team Delta, your record speaks for itself. That's why you've been selected for this critical extraction." Cooper felt the rest of the team subtly shift their positions, moving almost imperceptibly away from him, creating a formation that subconsciously placed him at the rear, protected, but also somewhat excluded. It was a pattern he'd grown accustomed to. Admiral Vex's core's eyes narrowed slightly as he noticed the formation adjustment. His gaze lingered briefly on Cooper before continuing. "We have a situation that requires your specific talents, one that may reveal whether our human colleagues have been exaggerating their capabilities." Cooper maintained his neutral expression, but inside, a familiar weight settled in his chest. "Another test. Another opportunity to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. Another chance to demonstrate that the seemingly frail bipeds from Earth deserved their place in the coalition. The Admiral activated the holographic display, revealing a storm-swept planet with violently swirling cloud patterns. Welcome to your next deployment, Delta Team. Welcome to Talos 4. The holographic representation of Talos 4 rotated slowly in the center of the briefing room, its turbulent atmosphere rendered in sickly yellows and toxic greens. Lightning storms crackled across its surface in constant violent bursts. Talos 4, Admiral Vexcor continued, his scarred face illuminated by the planet's glow. A Class 9 hostile environment world with atmospheric pressure 18 times coalition standard, constant electrical storms, and surface temperatures that fluctuate between extreme cold and volcanic heat within minutes. Krasthol's tentacles twitched. Sounds like a vacation spot. 68 standard hours ago, the Admiral continued, ignoring the comment. The Coalition research vessel Horizon went silent while in orbit. Their last transmission indicated they were investigating unusual energy signatures on the surface. The hologram shifted to display a sleek research vessel. 24 hours ago, we received an automated distress beacon. The Horizon crashed on the surface following an attack by unknown hostiles. Commander Zundaz leaned forward. Survivors? Unknown. But the ship's black box continues to transmit from here. A red indicator pulsed on the holographic map, deep within a violently churning storm system. Life support modules may have remained intact. What species comprised the Horizon's crew? Mirok asked, her feathers smoothing back in preparation mode. Mixed scientific team. Primarily Quilaxian and Voraxian researchers, with supporting crew from various coalition species. The Admiral's 4 eyes briefly flicked toward Cooper, including 3 human specialists. Cooper felt the subtle attention of his teammates shift toward him momentarily. He kept his face carefully neutral. The mission is straightforward but extremely high risk, Admiral Vexcor continued. You will deploy to the surface, locate the Horizon's wreckage, retrieve any survivors and critical research data, then extract. Grell's scaled brow furrowed. Sir, with respect, the atmospheric conditions alone would crush standard deployment vehicles. How are we expected to reach the surface? The Admiral nodded to Commander Zundaz, who stepped forward. We'll be using the new XTS-77 drop pods, specifically designed for extreme pressure environments. Plex 27's optical sensors brightened. The XTS-77 is still in prototype phase. Success probability calculations suggest we're aware of the risks. The Admiral cut in, but the potential intelligence from the Horizon's research is critical. They were investigating energy signatures consistent with potential Hive Collective technology. A tense silence fell over the room. The Hive Collective, the Coalition's most dangerous enemy, had been expanding aggressively along the galactic rim. If they had established a presence on Talos 4, it could represent a significant strategic threat. Mission parameters are being transmitted to your tactical displays now, the Admiral said. You deploy in 30 standard minutes. Any questions? Commander Zundaz straightened to attention. We'll prepare immediately, Admiral. As the team filed out, Cooper noticed the Admiral gesture subtly to Commander Zundaz. The two moved to a corner of the briefing room, voices hushed. Cooper couldn't hear their conversation, but years of combat instinct told him they were discussing him. In the equipment bay, the team began suiting up in specialized pressure armor. The reinforced exoskeletons would provide protection against Talos 4's crushing atmosphere, though mobility would be significantly compromised. Cooper, Krastol called out as he helped Mirok adjust her specialized avian armor. These suits are calibrated for our physiologies. Has yours been properly fitted? The question might have been genuine concern, but Cooper detected the underlying skepticism. Standard human adaptations were applied, he answered, checking the seal on his helmet. I'll manage. The human body is remarkably adaptable, Plex 27 observed, its own pressure housing already secured. Though I calculate significant strain on your musculoskeletal system in these conditions, your concern is touching, Cooper replied dryly. Commander Zundaz entered the equipment bay, his expression more severe than usual. Final mission briefing. Our primary objective is the retrieval of research data from the Horizon secure servers. Survivor extraction is secondary. Sir, Cooper questioned, his voice carefully measured. Standard Coalition protocol prioritizes personnel recovery. The commander's luminescent patterns pulsed with subtle irritation. Direct orders from Central Command, Lieutenant. The Horizon's research has been classified Priority Alpha. Cooper noticed his teammates exchanging glances. Priority Alpha was rarely invoked. only for intelligence directly related to coalition security at the highest level. Drop pod assignments, the commander continued. Krastol and Mirok, Pod 1, Grell and Plex 27, Pod 2. He paused. Cooper, you're with me in Pod 3. Cooper nodded, though the arrangement was unusual. Typically, the commander would pair with his second-in-command, Krastol, for high-risk deployments. As they moved toward the launch bay, Grell fell into step beside Cooper. Lucky you, getting personal supervision from the commander. I noticed that too, Cooper replied quietly. Any idea why the change in standard procedure? Grell's reptilian features were difficult to read, but Cooper detected hesitation. The admiral and commander had a private word after the briefing, nothing official, but, there's something about this mission they're not telling us. Cooper nodded, suspicion confirmed. And it involves me somehow. Don't take it personally, Grell rumbled. Humans are still an unknown quantity in combat situations like this. After 3 years in the coalition, Cooper raised an eyebrow. Grell shifted uncomfortably. 3 years is nothing, most of us have been fighting together for decades. They reached the launch bay, where 3 sleek drop pods waited, their reinforced hulls gleaming under the harsh lights. Each pod was barely large enough for 2 occupants in pressure armor, with minimal control interfaces and emergency systems. As the team performed final checks, Commander Zondaz approached Cooper. A word, Lieutenant. They stepped aside, the commander's 4 eyes fixed intently on Cooper's face. The Admiral shared some additional information about this mission, information specifically concerning you. Cooper met his gaze steadily. I suspected as much. The 3 human specialists on the horizon. The commander's voice lowered. One of them is Commander Eliza Montgomery. Cooper's carefully maintained composure slipped for just an instant. A flash of something, recognition, concern, perhaps even fear, crossed his face before he regained control. I see, he said simply. The Admiral thought you should know before we deployed. Commander Zondaz continued. Given your history. Cooper nodded once, his expression now unreadable. Thank you for informing me, Commander. Will this affect your performance on this mission, Lieutenant? Cooper's eyes hardened with unexpected intensity. No, sir, it won't. The commander studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. Good. Launch sequence initiates in 5 minutes. Prepare for drop. As Cooper turned toward Pod 3, he caught Grell watching him with newfound curiosity. The team had noticed the exchange, sensed the shift in energy. Whatever they thought they knew about their human teammate, something had just changed. The mission had suddenly become personal. The drop was worse than anyone had anticipated. Atmospheric turbulence exceeding safety parameters. Commander Zondaz announced tersely as their pod violently shuddered around them. The reinforced hull groaned under pressure that would have crushed standard spacecraft instantly. Cooper gripped the harness restraints, his knuckles white beneath his pressure suit gloves. The pod's internal gravity compensators struggled against Talos IV's chaotic forces, creating a nauseating sensation of falling and rising simultaneously. Maintaining descent vector, the commander reported, his forearms working the control interfaces with practiced precision. Pods 1 and 2 still on parallel trajectory. Through the small viewport, Cooper caught occasional glimpses of the other pods, tiny metallic teardrops plummeting through swirling toxic clouds illuminated by near-constant lightning. The storm system they were descending into looked like a maelstrom of electrical fury. Commander, Cooper said, his voice steady despite the violent descent. What aren't you telling me about this mission? The Qualaxian's luminescent patterns pulsed in what Cooper had learned to recognize as surprise. This isn't the time, Lieutenant. With respect, sir, if we're heading into a situation involving Commander Montgomery, I need to know the full picture. A particularly violent jolt interrupted their conversation as warning indicators flashed across the control panel. The commander's hands moved in a blur of corrective actions. Atmospheric density increasing beyond projected models, he muttered. Adjusting descent thrusters. Cooper persisted. Sir, Eliza Montgomery was my commanding officer during the Rigelian incursion. If she's involved in whatever happened on the horizon, I deserve to know. The commander's eyes remained fixed on the controls, but Cooper saw his jaw tighten. The horizon wasn't just conducting general research, they were testing a new defensive technology against Hive collective psychic infiltration, and Montgomery was leading the human contingent because of her unique experiences during the Rigelian incursion. The same experiences you reportedly share. Before Cooper could press further, a deafening crack reverberated through the pod as lightning struck dangerously close. The control panel sparked, and several systems temporarily failed before emergency backups engaged. Status report from other pods, Commander Zandaz demanded into the communication system. Krasthol's voice came through, distorted by static, Pod 1 sustaining damage but maintaining course. Estimated landing zone deviation minimal. Pod 2 systems compromised, came Plex 27's mechanical voice. Primary navigation offline, switching to manual descent protocols. The commander swore in his native tongue, maintain communication as long as possible. Rendezvous at designated coordinates. Cooper checked their navigation display. We're being pushed off course. That storm system is intensifying. I can see that, Lieutenant. The commander snapped, his usual composure fraying. Compensating. Through the viewport, Cooper watched as Pod 2 suddenly veered sharply, caught in what appeared to be a powerful updraft. It disappeared into the churning clouds within seconds. Pod 2, report. Commander Zandaz barked into the communication system. Only static answered. Structural integrity at 63% and declining, Cooper reported, reading from his display. We need to adjust our entry angle, or we won't survive landing. The projected coordinates are our best chance of reaching the horizon's crash site, the commander countered. Not if we explode on impact, Cooper shot back. There's a pocket of relative calm about 12 degrees off our current vector. If we redirect now, that would put us nearly 10 kilometers from our target in terrain we haven't mapped. Better than not reaching the surface at all. Another violent impact rocked the pod, and warning klaxons blared as a hairline fracture appeared in the pod's hull. Hull breach imminent, the automated system announced dispassionately. Cooper locked eyes with the commander. Your call, sir, but we need to decide now. For a tense moment, the Quilaxian's 4 eyes studied Cooper's face, as if searching for something. Then he nodded sharply and began adjusting their course. Pod 3 to all units, he transmitted. We're altering landing coordinates, sending new rendezvous point now. No acknowledgement came from either pod. The descent became, if possible, even more violent as they changed course. The pod spun sickeningly before the stabilizers could compensate, and Cooper felt his restraints cutting into his shoulders despite the pressure suit's padding. 30 seconds to surface impact, the commander announced. Brace for emergency landing procedures. Cooper watched as the commander's 4 hands worked the controls with impressive coordination, trying to control their descent. But as another lightning strike hit perilously close, several systems failed simultaneously. Primary thrusters non-responsive, the commander reported, his voice tight, switching to emergency landing protocols. The next 30 seconds were a blur of alarms, violent motion, and the commander's increasingly urgent attempts to control their descent. Cooper could do little except monitor the rapidly deteriorating hull integrity and prepare for impact. Brace, Commander Zandaz shouted finally. The impact came with devastating force. Despite the pod's shock absorption systems and their pressure armor, Cooper felt as though he'd been hit by a freight train. His vision momentarily darkened at the edges. When his senses fully returned, the pod lay at an awkward angle. Emergency lighting bathed the interior in dim red. Warning systems blared from multiple directions, and the acrid smell of electrical fires penetrated even their sealed helmets. Commander, Cooper called, turning to his companion. Commander Zandaz hung limply in his restraints, 2 of his 4 arms bent at unnatural angles. The front of his helmet was cracked, and blue Quilaxian blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. Status, report, the commander managed weakly. Cooper quickly unstrapped himself, fighting against the disorienting angle of the pod and his own injuries. Pod severely damaged. External atmosphere attempting to equalize through multiple breaches. You're injured, sir. Assessment of your condition, the commander asked, his breathing labored. Cooper did a quick mental inventory. His ribs hurt abominably, suggesting at least bruising if not fractures. His left shoulder had likely dislocated and reset during impact. Various other pains suggested contusions and minor injuries. Functional, he answered simply. Communications, Cooper checked the relevant panel, which sputtered and sparked ominously. Offline, no contact with pods 1 or 2. The commander attempted to move, then gasped in pain. Mission, parameters unchanged. We need to reach the horizon. First priority is stabilizing you, sir, Cooper countered, already retrieving the medical kit. Negative, Lieutenant. Mission comes first. Cooper paused, medical injector in hand. With respect, Commander, you're in no condition to continue without treatment. That's an order, Cooper. The commander's voice strengthened momentarily. The information in the Horizon's databanks is critical to coalition security, more important than any individual. Cooper's jaw tightened. Even Commander Montgomery. Even her, the commander confirmed, meeting Cooper's eyes with surprising intensity despite his injuries. But I suspect, that's not how you see it. Before Cooper could respond, the pod's structure groaned ominously. External sensors indicated the atmospheric pressure was continuing to increase as they sank deeper into a depression in the planet's surface. This pod won't hold much longer, Cooper announced, quickly administering pain suppressants and stabilizers to the commander. We need to move. The emergency shelter beacon, the commander directed weakly. Activate it. The others will find us. Cooper nodded and retrieved the beacon from its compartment. As he worked to stabilize the commander for transport, he glanced through the viewport at the hellish landscape outside. Through swirling toxic gases and electrical discharges, he could make out twisted rock formations and the silhouettes of what might have been native flora, if such inhospitable terms as native or flora could apply to such an environment. The visibility extended no more than 50 meters in any direction before the storm obscured everything. And somewhere out there, Cooper knew, lay the wreckage of the horizon. And Eliza Montgomery, the woman who had saved his life during the Rigelian incursion, who had witnessed the same inexplicable events he had, who understood what the others couldn't possibly comprehend about humanity's true capabilities. The commander was right about one thing: this mission had just become about more than retrieving data. For Cooper it had become personal. "This is insanity," Crestwhole hissed, his tentacles writhing with agitation as he stared at Cooper. "You want to cross 15 kilometers of hostile terrain in these conditions, carrying an injured commander?" They had found shelter in a natural rock formation that provided minimal protection from Talus the Ford's brutal environment. By some miracle, Pod 1 had landed within 2 kilometers of their position, and Crestwhole and Merrick had located them using the emergency beacon. Pod 2 remained unaccounted for. "The alternative is waiting here until our life support fails," Cooper replied, checking the seal on his pressure suit for the third time. "The Horizon crash site is our best chance of survival." Commander Zandos lay on an emergency medical pallet, his condition stabilized but serious. 2 of his arms were immobilized, and his breathing remained labored despite the medical interventions. "Our communications array is intact," Merrick argued, her feathers pressed flat against her body in the aggressive atmosphere. "The extraction team will find us if we remain at the beacon." "Extraction isn't coming," Cooper said bluntly. 3 pairs of alien eyes fixed on him with varying degrees of shock and disbelief. "Explain," the commander ordered weakly from his pallet. Cooper straightened, facing his teammates. "Think about it. This mission was classified Priority Alpha. The Admiral specifically informed the commander about Montgomery's presence on the horizon. We were sent with experimental drop pods into an environment that should have been deemed too hostile for any retrieval operation." "What are you suggesting?" Crestwhole demanded. "I'm suggesting that whatever the Horizon discovered is important enough, that Coalition Command doesn't care if we survive retrieving it." Cooper's voice remained calm, but his expression hardened. This was always a one-way mission. A moment of tense silence followed before the commander spoke. "Lieutenant Cooper's assessment aligns with certain irregularities I observed in our briefing." "Why wouldn't they tell us?" Merrick asked, her voice uncharacteristically small. "Would you have volunteered for a suicide mission?" Cooper countered. Crestwhole's tentacles coiled tightly. "We are Coalition soldiers. We follow orders." "Yes, but even Coalition Command knows there are limits," Cooper replied. "They sent us in without full disclosure, because they needed this data badly enough to sacrifice an elite team." The commander's luminescent patterns pulsed weakly. "The lieutenant's logic is sound. The mission parameters were suspiciously restrictive." Crestwhole paced the small shelter, his powerful form moving with surprising grace despite the cumbersome pressure armor. "Even if you're right, what difference does it make now? We still need extraction." "The Horizon was a research vessel," Cooper explained. "It would have emergency protocols, long-range communications, perhaps even functional escape pods we could repurpose. If any of it survived the crash," Merrick pointed out. "It's our only chance," Cooper insisted. "And we need to move soon. This atmosphere is degrading our suits faster than projected." As if to emphasize his point, a warning indicator flashed on Merrick's armor display. She quickly adjusted a setting, silencing the alert. "Atmospheric filtration at 70% efficiency," she reported reluctantly. Cooper turned to the commander. "Sir, you should make the call." Commander Zandos was silent for a long moment, his 4 eyes closed in what might have been pain or concentration. Finally, he spoke. "Lieutenant Cooper will lead a reconnaissance team to the Horizon crash site. Crestwhole, you will accompany him. Merrick will remain here with me to maintain the emergency beacon." Crestwhole's tentacles twisted in the Voraxian equivalent of a grimace. "You're putting the human in charge. Cooper has relevant experience," the commander replied, and his environmental suit shows the least degradation. The Rigelian incursion, similar conditions. Cooper nodded, remembering the hellish environment of Rizel 7, where atmospheric toxins had killed most of the rescue team within hours. Somehow, he had survived for days. What about Grell and Plex 27? Merrick asked. We should try to locate them. Their beacon is non-responsive, Cooper said. We'll keep scanning for signals, but our primary objective has to be reaching the horizon. The commander's breathing had become more labored. Lieutenant Cooper has operational command until my condition improves. Prepare for departure. As Cresthull reluctantly began gathering essential equipment, Cooper knelt beside the commander. Sir, there's something else you should know about Commander Montgomery. The commander's eyes opened slightly. I'm aware of your connection. Not just that, Cooper said quietly. The classified details of the Rigelian incursion. What happened to us there? It's related to what the Horizon was researching. Explain. Cooper glanced at the others, ensuring they were out of earshot. The Hive Collective psychic attacks affected everyone in my unit except Montgomery and me. We were immune somehow. That's why we survived when others didn't. The commander's luminescent patterns pulsed with surprise. That information wasn't in your file. Because no one would have believed it, Cooper replied. Human resistance to psychic influence was considered impossible, but Montgomery was conducting research on it. If that's what the Horizon was testing, then the Hive Collective would want it destroyed, the commander finished weakly. Cooper nodded, and Coalition Command would want that research at any cost. Proceed with caution, Lieutenant, the commander warned. If the Hive Collective attacked the Horizon, they may still be present. Understood, sir. Cooper stood and moved to where Cresthull was checking weapon systems. The Voraxian regarded him with obvious skepticism. I don't like this human, he said bluntly. Following you into certain death. If you have a better plan, I'm all ears, Cooper replied. That expression doesn't translate well to species without external auditory organs. Cresthull grumbled. Despite himself, Cooper smiled slightly. It means I'm willing to listen to alternatives. There are none, the Voraxian admitted reluctantly. But if we somehow survive this, I'll expect an explanation about why this mission is so personal to you. Cooper nodded. Fair enough. Within 20 minutes, they were ready to depart. The external sensors indicated a brief lull in the storm activity, as close to favorable conditions as they could hope for. Maintain regular communication checks, Cooper instructed Merrick. If we don't return within 24 hours. I know, she replied solemnly. Good hunting. As Cooper and Cresthull stepped out into Talos 4's hostile environment, the full force of the planet hit them immediately. Even through their reinforced armor, Cooper could feel the crushing pressure and the lashing winds that carried particles abrasive enough to gradually erode their suit exteriors. Visibility extended barely 100 meters, the landscape obscured by swirling toxic gases that glowed eerily during electrical discharges. The terrain was treacherous, sharp rock formations, unexpected crevasses, and patches of ground that seemed to shift and bubble with some unknown chemical reaction. This planet, Cresthull commented after they'd been walking for nearly an hour, is trying very hard to kill us. Most planets are indifferent to our existence, Cooper replied, carefully navigating around a steaming fissure in the ground. This one does seem to take it personally. The Voraxian made a sound that might have been a laugh. You know, for a fragile species, you humans have an unusual perspective on hostility. We evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill us, Cooper said. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, extreme temperatures, each other, makes you philosophical about danger. They continued in silence for a time, each step requiring careful consideration. Their suit diagnostics showed steady degradation from the environment, though Cooper's appeared to be holding up marginally better. After 3 hours of grueling progress, they reached the edge of a massive impact crater. The storm had temporarily cleared enough to provide visibility across the depression, and in its center lay the unmistakable wreckage of the Horizon. The once sleek research vessel was now a twisted hulk of metal, partially buried in the planet's surface. But what caught their attention was the movement around the crash site. Figures in unfamiliar dark armor moved methodically through the wreckage. Hive Collective, Cresthull whispered, tentacles coiling tightly in anger. They beat us here. Cooper's jaw clenched as he surveyed the scene through enhanced optics. At least 12 Hive soldiers were visible, with probably more inside the wreckage. They appeared to be both salvaging materials and searching for something. They're looking for the research data, he murmured. Same as us. We're outnumbered and outgunned, Cresthull pointed out. Even your irrational human optimism must recognize those odds. Cooper continued scanning the crash site methodically. Then he spotted something that made his breath catch, a separate, smaller impact point about half a kilometer from the main wreckage. An escape pod. There, he said, indicating the secondary crash site. No hive activity there yet. You think survivors? One way to find out. They carefully made their way around the rim of the crater, using the rocky terrain for cover. The planet's crushing gravity and hostile atmosphere made every movement exhausting, but they eventually reached a position overlooking the escape pod crash site. The pod had embedded itself in the planet's surface at an angle, but appeared largely intact, a testament to coalition emergency engineering. The hatch was sealed, with no signs of forced entry or hive interest. Life signs? Crest Hole asked as they approached cautiously. Cooper checked his scanner. Difficult to tell through the pod shielding, but there's an energy signature consistent with emergency life support. They reached the pod without incident, though Cooper felt the constant awareness of the hive soldiers less than half a kilometer away. One wrong move, one equipment failure, and they would be discovered. The pod's external access panel was damaged but functional. Cooper interfaced his suit's systems with it, attempting to bypass security protocols. Can you open it? Crest Hole asked, maintaining a vigilant watch on their surroundings. Working on it, Cooper replied, fingers moving quickly over the interface. The security system still recognizes coalition authorization, but it's heavily damaged. After several tense minutes, the pod's hatch released with a hydraulic hiss, equalizing pressure with the external environment. As it swung open, Cooper's helmet light illuminated the interior. A single figure in a human-designed pressure suit lay strapped to the pod's single acceleration couch. The suit showed signs of damage, but its life support indicators glowed steadily. Cooper moved closer, his heart pounding. He cleared away condensation from the helmet's faceplate, revealing the unconscious but unmistakable features of Commander Eliza Montgomery. We found her, Cooper said, his voice tight with emotion. She's alive.
So it was all true, Krasselfull said quietly, his tentacles uncharacteristically still as he stared at Cooper in genuine awe. The persistence hunting, the temperature regulation, all of it. They had gathered in the command center of the Coalition rescue vessel that had extracted them from Talos the Ford 12 hours earlier. Commander Zandaz, still recovering but conscious, sat propped up in a medical chair. Mirak stood nearby, her feathers occasionally twitching in lingering disbelief. Plex 27 and Grell had been recovered as well, having survived their crash landing in a protected valley, and at the center of their attention stood Cooper, looking impossibly ordinary despite what they had witnessed. Not myths after all, Cooper confirmed with a slight smile, just evolutionary adaptations that seem unremarkable to us but extraordinary to other species. Commander Montgomery, now awake and recovering in the medical bay, had confirmed everything. The Horizons research had focused on the unique resistance some humans exhibited to hive collective psychic infiltration, a resistance linked to the same evolutionary traits Cooper's teammates had mocked. You carried Commander Zandaz for 11 kilometers through toxic atmospheric conditions that had nearly compromised your pressure suit, Mirak recounted, her voice filled with newfound respect. After fighting off 3 hive soldiers with nothing but standard equipment, and maintained a pursuit of the hive commander until retrieving the research data, Plex 27 added, despite sustaining injuries that would have incapacitated most species. Grell shook his massive reptilian head. The thermoregulation alone should have been impossible. When your suit was breached, the temperature variations should have killed you instantly. Cooper shrugged modestly. The Rigelian incursion taught me my limits, or rather, taught me that they weren't what everyone assumed. Commander Zandaz's luminescent patterns pulsed with what Cooper now recognized as admiration. The question remains, Lieutenant, why didn't you tell us? Cooper looked around at his teammates, aliens, who had mockingly dismissed his species' capabilities just days ago, now regarding him with newfound respect. Would you have believed me? He asked simply. Or would you have continued assuming humans were just making up stories to compensate for being the weakest species in the coalition? A moment of uncomfortable silence confirmed his point. Sometimes, Cooper continued, the most effective strategy isn't telling people what you can do, it's showing them when it matters most. Krasselfull stepped forward, extending his primary tentacle in the Varaxian gesture of profound respect. On behalf of Strike Team Delta, I acknowledge that we were mistaken about humans. Cooper accepted the gesture with a nod. To be fair, most of you would die if dropped on Earth without protective gear. Every species has their strengths. Admiral Vexic's Corps entered the command center, interrupting the moment. The research data you recovered has been transferred to Coalition Command.
Its value cannot be overstated. And Commander Montgomery's findings? Cooper asked. Confirmed, the Admiral replied. Certain humans possess natural resistance to hive psychic infiltration, a trait the hive collective clearly considered threatening enough to attack the horizon. So the myths about humans, Mirok began, were tactical advantages all along, the Admiral finished. Abilities evolved on a world that, as Lieutenant Cooper put it, was constantly trying to kill them. He fixed Cooper with an evaluating gaze. Abilities that may prove crucial in our conflict with the hive. As the implications settled over the room, Cooper noticed his teammates looking at him differently, not with the dismissive tolerance of before, but with genuine curiosity and respect. I believe, Commander Zandaz said, breaking the silence, that Strike Team Delta owes Lieutenant Cooper an apology, and perhaps some questions about these human myths we've so casually dismissed. Cooper smiled, remembering all the times he'd bitten his tongue as they'd mocked human capabilities. I'd be happy to explain, but fair warning, the truth about humans is stranger than any myth you've heard, and significantly more terrifying, Crassel Full added with what passed for a Varaxian grin. To anyone foolish enough to underestimate you, that, Cooper agreed, is the one human trait no one ever seems to believe until they witness it firsthand. The Admiral nodded approvingly. I believe that's precisely why humans were invited to join the coalition, despite appearances. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Lieutenant Cooper, Commander Montgomery has requested to see you, something about comparing notes on persistence hunting. As Cooper left to visit his former commander, he heard Grell ask the others with genuine curiosity, do you think it's true they can actually digest almost anything organic, because that would explain so much about their meal choices? Cooper smiled to himself. Sometimes the most effective strategy wasn't telling people what you could do, it was letting them discover it for themselves, one impossible feat at a time.